Do you have anybody in your life that you look at that everything that they do, they are crushing it? Like they are on such another level as opposed to everybody else around them? Well, they figured a few things out to create separation between them and their peers. And today I want to talk to you about the great separator in business and in life. Let's dive in. All right, well, welcome back to the channel. I am so grateful that you're here. As always, thank you for your time and your attention. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you do that. And I want to talk to you today about the great separator in business and in life. Listen, there are people that are just on a whole nother level, right? There are people that you know that maybe are in your circle or that you go to church with or that you know from a distance that they are just crushing it. Listen, I know several people like that. I actually met with a guy yesterday. He was 29 years old and he's got like $5 million worth of real estate as a 29-year-old. Didn't come from money, figured it all out in his 20s. I'm like, wow, that's incredible, right? What did he figure out? How did he separate himself from the life that he used to live, the way that he used to think, and become who he is today? I know somebody that's probably 34, 35 years old. He's probably worth $250 million. How did he get there, right? There was this great separation between the way he used to live, the way he used to think, and who he is today. So I want to talk to you about what I have found to be the great separator in business and life. And so here's what that is: the speed at which you can observe, receive feedback, and adapt. It's not just the ability to observe, receive feedback, and adapt, but it's the speed at which you can observe, receive feedback, and adapt. Number one, you need to look at your life and you need to say, based on my values and based on where I'm trying to go, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? So we want to observe the situation. When we look at our life as a whole and we observe it, what do we not like? What is not aligning with our mission or our values, okay? If you are trying to create a stronger family and you are failing, you need to observe and say, why am I failing at this? Number two is receive feedback. So this is receiving feedback from other people, but this is also just receiving feedback from the environment, receiving feedback from what's happening, okay? So in your business, for example, you're trying to grow it, but you're not getting any sales and you're not talking to anybody. We need to observe, why am I not talking to anybody? Well, it's because you're not running any ads. You're not in front of enough people. You're not calling anybody. You're not making any efforts to get in front of the right people. Then from there, we receive feedback. Okay, so I'm not getting in front of enough people. I'm not making enough calls. I'm not running any paid advertising. I'm not learning what I need to learn to sell better. And then the last one is adapt. Okay, so we observe, we receive feedback, and then we adapt. All this means is that we take that feedback that we just got and we implement. And this is where 85% of people that are going to watch these videos, watch this channel, subscribe, leave me great comments, you will never do what I'm telling you to do. And I wish that wasn't the case. You know, I wish it was like, man, everybody's implementing this stuff. Y'all are all crushing it. You're killing it. But we trade action for learning a lot of times. We would rather sit and learn and feel like we did something as a result of sitting and listening to somebody else teach me something, as opposed to actually going and trying it. It's way scarier to go do it. It's way scarier to take something and implement it. But that's actually the only way that anything ever changes. Listen, I know people that are so much smarter than me, like they know so much more than me, but I'm ahead of them in different areas that they actually know more than me about. And it's because I've realized the power of implementation and going and doing the things that I'm learning. And so you've got to observe, receive feedback, and adapt. So here are a couple questions that you need to be willing to ask yourself when you're trying to separate yourself from the old life that you used to live or the way that you are now even. It's like, man, I'm tired of being lazy. I'm tired of being undisciplined. I'm tired of not growing this business, even though I say that I want to grow the business, but my actions don't align with it. So I want to give you a couple questions that we need to ask ourselves if we're really trying to create separation between who we used to be, the old life that we used to live, the life we're living now, and where we say we want to go. So number one is, to what extent are you willing to work on this thing? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to get there? Here's the thing that I've realized about trying to get anywhere is that you have to be willing to work to an excruciating level. Like if you really want to grow a big business or have a super incredible marriage, you have to fight through the most challenging things. Like I wish that I could just make this more evident to people. People think that it's so easy. People think that it should be easy. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. Like it's just not. I wish that it was. I wish that you could just, snap your fingers and get there, but I promise you that anything worth doing is going to be incredibly difficult. And so you have to ask yourself, to what extent am I willing to work to get there? And then for how long am I willing to work to get there, right? So it might be one of those things where it's like you have to work really hard for 5 years. But would it be worth it to work really hard for 5 years to grow a business that's doing $4, $5, $6, $10 million a year? Yeah, probably. It just depends. It depends on what you want. But to what extent are you willing to work, okay? The next question that we have to ask ourselves is this, is to what extent are we willing to humble ourselves? Because when you start thinking about trying to receive this feedback that hurts, or you're identifying these things in your life that don't feel good, you have to be willing to humble yourself enough to not say, I'm right, what I'm doing is the right thing all the time, but where am I missing it? You know, where am I maybe missing the mark on this to where I can actually adapt and change over time? The final one here is, to what extent are you willing to pivot or change when it's no longer working or no longer serving you? And I think this is a big challenge for many of us, because what used to work maybe isn't working anymore, or what used to serve us in the past season of life that we were in now doesn't serve us in this season any longer. So when we look at creating separation in business and in life, you got to be willing to ask yourself these three questions. To what extent am I willing to work? To what extent am I willing to humble myself? And then to what extent am I willing to pivot? And so with that being said, guys, appreciate you so much. I'll see you in the next one.